I would like to welcome all listeners to the second installment of the analysis of the world famous book Ulysses by the world famous writer James Joyce. Um, First of all, I'd like to again apologise for any coughs that may have come across on the first installment, the first 20 pages. As I said, this is an amateur recording and it's my first time doing it, so and I was suffering from a little bit of a cold, as they say in Ireland, and I know a few coughs come across, which I sincerely apologise for. That aside, just for 30 seconds, I'd like to reintroduce myself. My name is John Ruane. I come from the village of Monavea, which is approximately 15 miles from Galway City, in the parish of Abenakmai. It's a rural village. 4 pubs, 2 shops, small village, um, with a lot to offer. Um, we got a wood, rivers, very scenic place. Monavea is steeped in history, and anybody that's ever passing by, stop in and visit us here in Monavea. We do get a lot of tourists during the summer here. It's a beautiful village. Monavea is probably known. It's well known for being mainly the widest streets in Europe, technically, because years ago in history they used to dry flax out in the greens. But Monavea is a really scenic place, and anybody ever passing by, stop in and visit us here in Monavea. You will get a céad míle fáilte and a welcome, as they say. Myself, I'm married to Ellen, who is an American girl from New York. We have 4 children, and I'm also a playwright. I've written 13 plays now, 2 full-length plays and 11 one-act plays. One of my plays was staged, a play called Desperations was staged in the year 2000 in a small theatre in New York called a Theatre for a New City was the name of the theatre. It ran for 13 nights and got very favourable reviews from the Village Voice over there, and the Irish Voice newspaper and the Irish Echo newspaper, with a cast of 11 and a great production all around. So at the moment I have 11 one-act plays and 2 full-length plays, and I'm still trying to get them staged in Ireland or elsewhere, actually. If there's any listeners from any other countries out there want to drop me an email and would be interested in staging any of these plays, I would gladly send you on the script for three one-act plays that I would like to get staged first. Overall running time for these 3 one-act plays would be 1 hour 50 minutes with an overall cast of 12 actors, 12 actresses, and I assure you these are 3 hugely entertaining plays, one-act plays, and completely stageable, absolutely. And if anyone would care to drop me an email, I would send them 3 plays on to them. I would appreciate that. I also have a book of short stories wrote called 9 Stories from Evanon, which is for sale on Amazon. I think 18 pages can be viewed. There should be a link on this recording, I think. And if anybody would care to buy that, I would appreciate that. That's enough about me and so forth. I would like to go now to page 20 of Ulysses. I'm halfway down on page 20. The last paragraph I'm going to read over again, which I think we covered. The priest, grey nimbus in a niche way dressed discreetly. I will not sleep here tonight, home also I cannot go. A voice sweetened as sustained called him from the sea. Turning the curve, he waved his hand, a calling in a sleek brown head. A seal's far out on the water round, usurper. And that has been covered, so we're starting again from there, basically. And as I said in the previous 20 pages, it would be a good idea to mark the pages with a pen or pencil in the top left, right hand corner, whatever. That way we'll be on the same wavelength, kind of. So I'm at halfway on page 20. Now, any other listeners that's following this, you could have page 19, but, dependent on the length of the of the sentences and so on and so forth. Anyway, the next line, starting Ulysses again, is dialogue, which is a little dash. Joyce didn't like to use the inverted commas for dialogue. He felt they were an eyesore. So I used a little dash in front. That's how you know it's dialogue. Joyce again. Good man, James. So the line starts, "You, Cochrane, what city sent for him?" Next line, "Taran Tom, sir." Next line, "Very good, well." Next line, "There was a battle, sir." Next line, "Very good, where?" I want to stop there again, just go over them a few lines. Now, where's the setting for this? Let's try and figure out the setting. Where is this? What's going on? What's happening here? This is a totally new chapter, more or less. But the key actually is in the second line. So I'll read it over again. So first line, "You, Cochrane, what city sent for him?" So somebody's asking somebody a question here. The next line is, "Taran Tom, sir." If you stop and think about that, sir. Now, who would call somebody sir? Well, I know in the army and the navy they would call the officer sir. Or also they're not in a classroom, would the students not call the teacher sir? So, next line, "Very good, well." Next line, "There was a battle, sir." Very good, where? So, figuring this out, I would say this is a teacher, and this is a teacher posing a question to a student. I'll read it again. This may sound very kind of, simple and all that, but listeners need to get into a kind of a frame of mind reading Ulysses, and you kind of have to start thinking. You got to be alert, and you got to start thinking all the time. So, put it like this: the teacher is saying, "You, Cochrane, what city sent for me?" He's asking a question of a student. The student answers, "Taran Tom, sir." So the teacher then, next line, says, "Very good, well, tell me more about it." Next line, "There was a battle, sir." That's just like what a student would say. Next line, "Very good, where?" The teacher is asking, where was the battle? Next line, "The boy's blank face asked the blank window." So obviously the boy, so now we know it's a boy, like a student. Blank face, just imagine when he's frozen, he doesn't know the answer, asked the blank window. Imagine I'm looking at a blank window, at the window. Great writing again from Joyce there. Now, the next line, let me read the next paragraph. "Fabled by the daughters of memory, and yet it was in some way, if not as memory fabled it. A phrase, then, of impatience, thud of Blake's wings of excess. I hear the ruin of all space, shattered glass and toppling masonry, and time, one livid final flame. What's left us then?" If I was to guess now, I would say that's the teacher. That's the teacher thinking. He's thinking in his mind. We don't know who this teacher is yet. If we were kind of throw a guess at this here, and I would say, well, we know from reading the previous 20 pages, we know that Stephen Dedalus had some kind of a, as Buck Mulligan said, some kind of a school, what should he call it, KIP. So he is working in a school as a teacher somewhere, maybe part-time, maybe full-time. We haven't been told that yet. If I was to guess, I would say right now, this is probably Stephen Dedalus here again. So Stephen Dedalus is thinking, I would say, fabled by the daughters of memory, and yet it was in some way, if not as memory fabled it, a phrase, then of impatience, thud of Blake's wings of excess. I hear the ruin of all space, shattered glass and toppling masonry, and time one livid final flame. What's left us then? Now, if I was to try and figure that out. I would say a fable by the Doors of Memory. I'm not sure about that Doors of Memory. It could be the writers or something that wrote about this battle, Tara and Tom, this battle that they're discussing in the classroom, and yet it was some way as memory, if not as memory fabled it. Something along them lines, I know. I'm not 100% sure. A phrase then, he's thinking about a phrase probably in that battle or something, which we may find out about later on. Din of impatience, thud of Blake's wings of excess. Thud, Blake. Now he could be thinking that something in this story reminds them of Blake's wings of excess, which could possibly be a William Blake poem or something. I hear the ruin of all space, shattered glass and toppling masonry. He's thinking about, like a battle where things shattering glass and toppling masonry, and time. He's thinking about time in general, and one livid final flame. More saying, I think that's how it could all end. One final flame. What's left us then? What's left for us then? I think that could be something on them lines. But Stephen Dallas, I think, is definitely thinking in his mind. It's just these thoughts that have come into his mind there, and Joyce has put them on paper. Thud of Blake's Wings of Excess. Now, if you've done proper research and looked up William Blake's poem with a line "Wings of Excess" in it, this will become more clearer here, But he's just generally thinking about that battle, Tara and Tom, I think. So on to the next line. I forget the place, sir. 279 BC. This is the student saying to Stephen Dallas, I forget the place, sir. And this is the date. Next line. Asculum, Stephen said. So yes, it is Stephen Dallas. Asculum, Stephen said, glancing at the name and date in the Gore-Scar book. Gore-Scar book, that's a great way of putting that there. Next line. Yes, sir. And he said, another victory like that and we are done for. Yes, sir. So this is the student speaking in. Yes, sir. And he said, must be referring to the general or something. Another victory like that and we are done for. Now, I've done a small little bit of research, not me actually, my wife done it, a little bit of research on a few of this Taranton and so on and so forth. I just want to pull that out there. It might take me a minute here not to look this up. Taranton, where is that told? Oh no, it's actually on the other side of the page, sorry. Okay, Tarantum was an ancient city. It was the ancient name for Taranto. Asculum was the ancient town, initially site of Roman defeat in 279 BC. And we're going to come, okay, Asculum, an ancient city, an ancient town, initially site of Roman defeat in 279 BC. Right. Yes, sir. And he said, another victory that and we are done for. Next line. That phrase the world had remembered, a dull ease of the mind. From a hill above a corpse-strewn plain, a general speaking to his officers leaned upon his spear. Any general to any officers they lend ear. Next line. You, Armstrong, Stephen said, what was the end of Pyrrhus? Next line. End of Pyrrhus, sir. Now, Pyrrhus was the king of Epirus and general from 300 to 372 BC. He was the king. This Pyrrhus was the king in this battle, anyways. Now to read over that again. I forget the place, sir. 279 BC. Asculum, Stephen said, glancing at the name and date in the Gore-Scar book. Yes, sir. He said, another victory like that, and we are done for. So he was a Roman. Cyrus was a king, was a Roman, whatever, a Roman general or king or whatever. So he said, yes, sir. And he said, another victory like that, and we are done for. Another victory. We are defeated again like that. I think he's saying, another victory that if we are defeated again, we are done for. I think we are done for. Rome is done for, We can't, what is more, this virus is more or less saying we can't, if we're another victory that, and we are done for, the Roman Empire could be done for. That phrase, which is the phrase he said, another victory that we're done for, the world had remembered, in the history books. A dull ease of the mind, not sure about that. From a hill, a carpstone plain, a general speaking to his officer. Now this is Stephen Dallas thinking here again. From a hill, visualize a general speaking to his officers, leaning upon his spear. Like any general to any officers, they lend ear, they listen to what he's saying. It's like a general looking over, the battlefield and all the bodies and so on and so forth. Now, next line. You, Armstrong, Stephen said. So he's probably pointing. Stephen Dallas, the teacher, is pointing to a pupil called Armstrong. You, Armstrong, Stephen said. What was in the virus? And the student answers, in the virus, sir. Next line. I know, sir. Ask me, sir. Cameron S. said. So there's another student who has butted in basically and said, I know, sir. Ask me, sir. Next line. Wait, you, Armstrong. So the teacher, the Dallas, said, no, wait, you, Armstrong. You answered. Do you know anything about virus? So he's asked this other kid, Armstrong, do you know anything about virus? Now, next line. A bag of fig rolls lay snugly in Armstrong's satchel. He curled them between his palms at whiles and swallowed them softly. Crumbs adhered to the tissue of his lips, sweetened by his breath. Well-off people, proud that their eldest son was in the Navy, Vico wrote the Dorky. Now, a bag of fig rolls. Fig rolls are biscuits, as they call, say in Ireland, in England, I think. And in America, they're called cookies. A bag of fig rolls. Fig rolls are, they're a brand. It's like the fig inside. A bag of fig rolls lay snugly in Armstrong's satchel. He curled them, like he got them up and he's squeezing them. He curled them between his palms at whiles and swallowed. So this kid, what he's in the classroom, he's catching these fig roll biscuits, cookies, and every chance he gets, he's taking a bite of them basically. He curled them between his palms at whiles and swallowed them softly. Crumbs adhered to the tissue of his lips, like young kids would do behind the teacher's back. Crumbs adhered to the tissue of his lips, sweetened by his breath, the sugar from the cookies, biscuits. Well-off people, proud that their eldest son was in the Navy. Well-off people, proud that their eldest son was in the Navy. Vico wrote Dorky. Now, I would say that's this Armstrong could possibly be in the Navy, but also going to school. It's possible, or something like that. Well, people proud that their eldest son was in the Navy. Vico wrote Dorky. That could be where he's from. Next line. Virus, sir. Virus, appear. So this looks like Armstrong is answering. Virus, sir. Virus, appear. So he says appear. Next line. All laughed, mirthless, high, malicious laughter. Armstrong looked round at his classmates, silly, glee in profile. In a moment they will laugh more loudly, aware of my lack of rule and of the fees their papas pay. I'll read that again. Virus, sir. So Armstrong just has answered this question. Virus, sir. Virus is a pier. He thinks it's a pier in the ocean or the sea or whatever. So all the other kids left. He got the answer wrong. Mirthless, high, malicious laughter. Armstrong looked round at his classmates. He looked around his classmates, silly, glee and profile. You can just imagine them all laughing at him. In a moment they will laugh more loudly. This is Stephen Adela's thinking right here. In a moment they will laugh more loudly. Aware of my lack of rule. This is Stephen Adela's thinking. They'll be aware of my lack of rule in the classroom, basically. And they'll be also aware of the fees their papas pay. So now this, I would say, is a private school, and their papas, their fathers, parents pay fees. So I think we're in a, yes, it looks like we're in a private school here. So he's more or less saying here, the kids will be aware that their parents paid to send them here. So, that's basically what he's saying there. Next line. Tell me now, Stephen said, poking the boy's shoulder with the book. What is up here? So Stephen Adels said to Armstrong, tell me now. poking the boy's shoulder with the book. What is a pier? Next line. A pier, sir, Armstrong said. A thing out on the waves. A kind of bridge. Kingston Pier, sir. So that's pretty self-explanatory. Armstrong answered that. Next line. Some laughed again, mirthless, but with meaning. Two in the back bench whispered, yes. They knew, had never learned, nor ever been innocent. All, with envy, he watched their faces. Edith, Ethel, Gertie, Lily, their likes, their breaths too, sweetened with tea and jam, their bracelets tittering in the struggle. Read that back again. Tell me now, Stephen said, poking the boy's shoulder with the book. What is a pier? Next line. A pier, sir, Armstrong said. A thing out on the waves, a kind of bridge. Kingston Pier, sir. Next line. Some laughed. The kids started laughing, mirthless but with meaning. Two kids in the back of the classroom bench whispered, yes, I think he's right, probably, they're saying. They knew, maybe they knew the answer, had never learned nor ever been innocent. Not really sure about that line. All. Now, with envy, he watched their faces. Now, this is Stephen Dallas. He's watching all the boys' faces in the classroom. With envy, he watched their faces. With envy, maybe because they're well-off kids, maybe. With envy, he watched their faces. Edith, now he's watching one kid, Edith. Okay, that's Edith. That's Edith's son. The next kid, Ethel, that's Ethel's son. The next kid, that's Gertie's son. And that's Lily's son. Their likes, they look like their mother a little bit. Their likes, their breaths, they kind of have their mother's breaths. They're descended from their mother, basically. Two, sweetened with tea and jam. Their breaths, that's what he's more or less saying there. And now he's thinking about their mothers. Their bracelets tittering in the struggle. I think what he's kind of saying there, this is Stephen Dallas thinking now here. Their bracelets tittering in the struggle. He's probably thinking about their mothers, making love. Their bracelets tittering in the struggle. It's possible. So that's what he's inferring there. Next line. Kingstown Pier, Stephen said. Yes, a disappointed bridge. Now this is Stephen Dallas speaking. Kingstown Pier, Stephen said. Yes, a disappointed bridge. The words troubled their gaze. All the kids didn't understand what he was on about. Next line. How, sir? Comlan asked. A bridge is across a water. A bridge is across a river. So this other kid, Comlan, asked, a bridge? How, sir? Comlan asked, a bridge is across a river. So this kid has asked this question. Next line. For Haynes's chapbook, no one here to hear, tonight deftly amid wild drink and talk, to pierce the polished mail of his mind. What then? A jester at the court of his master, indulged and disenteemed, winning a clement master's praise. Why had they chosen all that part, not wholly for the smooth caress? For them too history was a tale like any other. For them too history was a tale like any other, too often heard, their land a pawn shop. Sounds a bit confusing here now, but we'll tackle it anyway. Kingstown Pier, Stephen said. Yes, a disappointed bridge. The words troubled their gaze. Next line. How, sir? Comlan asked. A bridge is across a river. Now, this is Stephen Dallas thinking right here. He says, for Haynes's chapbook. Because remember earlier in the 20 pages we read previously, Haynes, the other person, the English person, mentioned that he was looking to collect some of the sayings. So when Stephen Dallas says Kingston Pier, Stephen said, yes, a disappointed bridge. So that's like a saying. And then he's thinking, that's one for Haynes's chapbook, for his book. Chapbook is chapbook. A chapman was a medieval times, used to collect sayings and poems and stuff. Used to go around. I think chapman. That's what for Haynes's chapbook. changed his book to write down. No one here to hear. No, this is Stephen Dallas still thinking. He says, "No one here to hear, but no one is here to hear that. Tonight, definitely amid wild drink and talk." So he possibly here he's thinking about amid wild drink and talk in a pub, maybe to pierce the polished mail of his mind. Maybe referring to Haynes there. What then? Maybe he's thinking, what then? I'm like a jester at the court of his master, indulged and disentemed, winning a clement master's praise. Why had they chosen? Let me just read that again. What then? A jester. Then he's thinking, a jester at the court of his master. That's what he is. He might seem like indulged and disentemed, winning. Now he's thinking about a jester, winning a clement master's praise. This is what jesters, they're always looking to win, their master's praise. And then he's thinking about jesters in general. Why had they chosen all that part? Why did they choose that part, jesters in life? Not wholly for the smooth caress. It wasn't wholly for the smooth. For them too, history was a tale. He's thinking about jesters. For them too, history was a tale, like any other too often heard. Their land a pawn shop. Jesters' land really is, you've seen, is a pawn shop. They sell themselves, I think he's referring to there. And now he's still thinking, had Pyrrhus not fallen by a bedland's hand in Argos, or Julius Caesar not been knifed to death, they are not to be thought away. Time has branded them and fettered. They are lodged in the room of the infinite possibilities they have oosted. But can those have been possible, seeing that they never were, or was that only possible which came to pass? Weaver of the wind. Now, read the paragraph again. Now, Stephen Dallas is still thinking here. He said, had Pyrrhus, this is the person in Pyrrhus, the king of Epirus, is it? And general in that battle in Rome, I think, is it? Had Pyrrhus not fallen by a bedlam's hand. A bedlam is like an old woman, kind of a hag old woman, I think. Had Pyrrhus not fallen, if he had not been killed by this old woman in Argos, maybe that's the scene of the battle, or Julius Caesar not been knifed, or Julius Caesar had not been knifed to death, they are not to be thought away. They are not to be thought away. Probably their killers he's referring to. Time has branded them. Time has branded their killers, and fettered they are lodged in the room. Time has branded them, and fettered they are lodged in the room of the infinite possibilities they have oosted. Time has branded them, and fettered they are lodged in the room of the infinite possibilities they have oosted. The infinite possibilities they have oosted. The people they killed had infinite possibilities they could have achieved in life, and they kind of stopped it more or less, I think. Now, but can those have been possible, seeing that they never were possible? Joyce's humour again. But can those have been possible, seeing that they never were possible in the first place? And next line. Or was that only possible which came to pass? Or was that only possible which came to pass? Joyce is kind of, having a bit of fun there, I think. Next line. Weaver of the wind. Now, Weaver of the wind. I know we've read this line popped up in the previous 20 pages. Weaver of the wind. We don't really know what it's about yet, but I think it'll come more into light as we continue on with this story. Weaver of the wind. We keep an eye on that and that phrase. Weaver of the wind. Next line. So tell us a story, sir. Next line. Oh, do, sir, a ghost story. Next line. Where do you begin in this? Stephen asked, opening another book. Next line. Weep no more, Comnan said. Next line. Go on then, Talbot. Next line. And the history, sir. So basically what's happening here is, one of the kids, in the classroom, I said to the teacher, Stephen Dallas, tell us a story, sir. And the next line is, another kid has said, oh, do, sir, a ghost story. Next line, where do you begin in this? Stephen asked, opening another book. So Stephen Dallas, the teacher, opened another book, and he said, where do you begin in this? Where do we pick up from yesterday, probably. Next line, weep no more, Comnan said. Next line, go on then, Talbot. Go on then, Talbot, Stephen Dalsa said to this kid called Talbot. Talbot, sorry. Next line, and the history, sir. 1 second. Sorry about that. Still have a touch with a cold. So basically, the kids here are, talking to the teacher and asking, about a ghost story and so on. Next line, after Stephen said, "Go on, Talbot." Oh yeah, okay. Oh yeah, and the history, sir. Another kid has said, and the history. What about the history lesson or whatever? Next line, after Stephen said, "Go on, Talbot." Next line, a swarthy boy opened a book and propped it nimbly under the breastwork of his satchel. He recited jerks of verse with odd glances at the text. "Weep no more, woeful shepherd, weep no more. For Lycidas, your sorrow is not dead. Sunk through, he be beneath the watery floor." So just a boy has opened a book and propped it nimbly under the breast, on his satchel, which is his bag, basically. He recited jerks of verse, which is a great writing from Joyce there. He recited jerks of verse. What that basically means, without glances at the text, he's kind of reciting like, "Weep no more," like in jerks. "Woeful shepherd," pause, "weep no more." That's what I think he refers to, recited jerks of verse. And so on. Next, he's just reciting there. Next line, "It must be a movement then, an actuality of the possible. As possible, Aristotle's phrase formed itself within the gabbled verses, and floated out into the studious silence of the library of Saint Genevieve, where he had read, sheltered from the sin of Paris, night by night. By his elbow a delicate Siamese conned a handy book of strategy, fed and feeding brains about me, under glow lamps, impaled with faintly beating feelers, and in my mind's darkness a sloth of the underworld, reluctant, shy of brightness, shifting her dragon scaly folds. Thought is the thought of thought. Tranquil brightness, the soul is in a manner all that is. The soul is the form of forms. Tranquility, sudden, vast, candescent, form of forms. Let me just read over that again. So this is basically Stephen Dallas thinking here, and he's thinking about something basically. It must be a movement in an actuality of the possible as possible. And now he's thinking about Aristotle. Aristotle. I didn't do any research on Aristotle actually, but I will get to him again. Aristotle's phrase formed itself. Oh, that's probably the poem they're reading, I would say. Aristotle's phrase formed within the gabbled verses and floated out. That's the philosopher, Aristotle, obviously, right? And floated out. Aristotle's phrase formed itself within the gabbled verses and floated out into the studious silence of the library of Saint Genevieve, right? Now, Saint Genevieve was the patron saint of Paris, where he had read. So it's basically Saint Genevieve had read Aristotle's, books, whatever. Sheltered from the sin of Paris, night by night. He'd be reading it night by night. Sheltered by the sin of Paris. Maybe it was Paris at the time was a sinful place. Patron saint of. Night by night, by his elbow, a delicate Siamese. By his elbow, someone beside him as he was reading. A delicate Siamese, like his twin. It seems like conned a handy book of strategy. Basically taking down notes, I would say, or something. Fed and feeding brains about me. Now, Stephen Dallas is thinking here, fed and feeding brains about me. Aristotle's writings. It is fed and is feeding brains about me still. And then he's under glow lamps. Even back in the times of this Saint Genevieve, under glow lamps, impaled. Now, I think them glow lamps would refer to a stick, like a stick with a torch on top of it, like a fire under glow lamps, impaled with a branch of a tree, and like a naked flame on top of it. I forget what you call them, with faintly beating feelers. Could refer to that as well. And now he's thinking about in his mind, and in my mind's darkness, a sloth of the underworld. Now he's thinking about the dark side of his mind. And in my mind's darkness, a sloth of the underworld, reluctant, shy of brightness. This shy of brightness is in the dark side, shifting her dragon scaly foes. Dragon would refer to the devil. Dragon scary foes. The darker side could be taken over. He's in his brain, something along them lines. But he's thinking there anyway. And then this next line: thought is a thought of thought. Now, if you think about that, thought is a thought of thought. It's funny from Joyce again. Thought is the thought of thought. Great writing from Joyce again, of course. Tranquil brightness. He's still thinking here. The soul is in a manner all that is. So he's also thinking here. The soul is in a manner all that is. It's really all that really matters is the soul. The soul is the form of forms. The soul is everything. Tranquility, sudden, vast, candescent form of forms. A Talbot repeated. Now this is the kid still reciting. Through that dear might of him that walked the waves, through the dear might. Now, if we had this poem in front of us, or you could do more research, and this whole thing would, or if you're doing a bit of research on Saint Genevieve and Aristotle and this poem, this would come a lot clearer. I don't really have the time right now. It would just take too much. It would take too much time, basically. So next line. Turn over, Stephen said quietly. I don't see anything. So he's saying to the boy, turn over the page. I don't see anything. I don't see anything left, I think. Next line. What, sir? Talbot asked, simply bending forward. What, sir? So visualize the boy looking at the book, and he's bending forward to look at the page. Next line. His hand turned the page over. He leaned back and went on again, having just remembered. Now, this is Stephen de Dallas here. His hand turned the page over. He turned the page over. He leaned back. Just imagine the school teacher leaning back and went on again, having just remembered. And went on again. He went walking around the classroom probably, and having just remembered. And now he's still thinking here. Of him that walked the waves. Of him that walked the waves. Here also over those craven hearts his shadow lies. And on the scoffer's heart and lips, and on mine, it lies upon their eager faces, who offered him a coin of the tribute. To Caesar what is Caesar, to God what is God's, a long look from dark eyes, a riddling sentence to be woven and woven on the church's loomed eye. Let me read that paragraph over again. His hand turned the page over. Stephen Dallas turned the page over. He leaned back and went on again. He's walking around the classroom, I would say, having just remembered. Now, of him that walked the waves. Of him that walked the waves. Now, if you think about that, of him that walked the waves, there's only one person that I know that walked on the waves, and that was Jesus. So he's thinking about Jesus here, I think. Of him that walked the waves, which is Jesus. Here also over those craven hearts his shadow lies. Craven, is it? Craven means cowardly, I think. Here also over those craven hearts. Craven hearts are the craving. I don't know. Are the craving attention? I'm not sure about that. Here also over those craven hearts his shadow lies. Jesus' shadow lies. And on the scoffer's heart and mind, and on the people that will be knocking God and Jesus, and on the scoffer's heart and lips, and their lips, what to say about him, and on mine. So he could be knocking. Stephen Dallas obviously not a friend of Jesus, I don't think. It lies upon their eager faces who offered him. It lies upon the shadow. It lies upon their eager faces who offered him a coin of the tribute. Now I think that in the Bible it says that Jesus offered a tribute. to Caesar what is Caesar. Give to Caesar what is Caesar. To God what is God's. Yes, so I think he's definitely thinking about Jesus here, because it is in the Bible. I think Jesus said, "Give to Caesar what is Caesar, and give to God what is God's." A long look from dark eyes. A long look from dark eyes. I don't know what he means by that. A riddling sentence. A riddling sentence, referring to the Gospels. I would think Jesus' Gospels. A riddling sentence to be woven and woven on the church looms. To be woven. A long look from dark eyes. A riddling sentence to be woven and woven on the church's looms. Church's looms. A loom is for to make clothes, isn't it? Loom. It's a machine for weaving. A loom, isn't it? A long look from dark. A riddling sentence to be woven and woven on the church's looms. Could be referring to a long look from dark eyes. I can't figure out that line. A long look from dark eyes. A riddling sentence. A riddling sentence. I definitely think that's referring to the Gospels. To be woven and woven on the church's looms. Could be referring to be woven on the making the Bible, and so on over and over again and so on. Next line, he's thinking now here. Riddle me, Randy Rowe, my father gave me seeds to sow. Seems asking, riddle me, Randy Rowe, my father gave me seeds to sow. There's definitely a kind of a sexual connotation to that there, no doubt, knowing Joyce. Next line, Talbot slid his closed book into his satchel, into his, school bag. Next line, have I heard all? Stephen asked. Have I heard all the poem, whatever. Next line, yes sir, hockey at 10, sir. This is a kid speaking. Yes sir, hockey at 10, sir. Next line, half day, sir, Thursday. Next line, who can answer a riddle? Stephen asked. Okay, that's pretty self-explanatory. The kids. He finished the poem, he put into his bag. Have I heard all? Have I heard all? Stephen asked. Yes sir, hockey at 10. We're playing hockey at 10. So they play hockey in the school. Some other kid has said, half day, sir, Thursday. Remember, it's a half day, Thursday. And Stephen Durrell said, who can answer a riddle? Stephen asked. They bundled their books away, pencils clacking, pages rustling. That's great imagery there again. They bundled their books away. You can just imagine the pencils clacking and pages rustling, and the kids storing their books away. Next line. Crowding together, they strapped and buckled their satchels, all gabbling gaily. That's great writing. Crowding together. Imagine all the boys crowding together. They're strapping and buckling their satchels, their bags, all gabbling gaily, all talking, rapidly, so on. Next line. A riddle, sir. Ask me, sir. That's the kid asking the teacher. A riddle, sir. Ask me, sir. Next line. Oh, ask me, sir. Another kid said, oh, ask me, sir. Next one. A hard one, sir. Another kid said, oh, is it a hard one, sir? Next line. This is a riddle, Stephen said. That's great. Just, that's very simple writing, it seems, but it's great writing from Joyce, because you can visualize clearly, the 3 or 4 boys. That's what they would say. A riddle, sir. Ask me, sir. Oh, ask me, sir. And next line. Is it a hard one, sir? This is the riddle, Stephen said. The cock crew, the sky was blue, the bells in heaven were striking 11. 'Tis time for this poor soul to go to heaven. 'Tis time for this poor soul to go to. I have got to stop there now for a second, because I think I might have actually. I'm gonna have to just look over something here again. Oh yeah, I'm gonna go back to the previous page again. Some laughed again, mirthless but with meaning. 2 in the back bench whispered, yes, they knew, had never learned, never been innocent, all with envy. He watched their faces, Edith, Ethel, Gertie, Lily, their lives, their breaths, to a sweet tea and gender. Oh yeah, it's the next line. Kingston Pier, Stephen said, yes, the disappointed bridge. Next line. The world's troubled the gates. How, sir? A bridge across. A disappointed bridge. Yes, I meant to actually say something about yes, it's a disappointed bridge. Um, so Stephen said Kingstown Pier is a disappointed bridge. Well, why did he call it a disappointed bridge? If you think about it, it's a disappointed bridge because it's disappointed because it didn't make it all the way across. Great writing from Joyce here again. Kingstown Pier, Stephen said, yes, a disappointed bridge. It's a pier only goes out halfway, and it's disappointed it didn't make it all the way across. That's I just forgot to actually try and explain that. Yes, it's a disappointed bridge. A pier is a disappointed bridge because it never made it all the way across. That's basically what that means. So back to that riddle again. The cock crowed, the sky was blue, the bells in heaven were striking 11. 'Tis time for this poor to go to heaven. So this is about a boy speaking. What is that? What is that? Next line. What, sir? This two students asking. Next line. Again, sir, we didn't hear. That's exactly how kids in a classroom would speak. Next line. Their eyes grew bigger as the lines were repeated. After a silence, Cochrane said, their eyes grew bigger. And just imagine all the boys listening and their eyes grew bigger. That's great writing from Joyce again, Their eyes grew bigger as the lines were repeated. After a silence, Cochrane said, what is it, sir? We give up. What is it? We give up. We don't understand it. Stephen, his throat itching, answered. No, that's great writing again. Stephen, his throat itching to say something. Answer, the fox burying his grandmother under a holly bush. Now I don't have a clue what that is all about yet, but I think this is another example of Joyce, throwing this in here, and I think Joyce is going to solve this riddle for us later on, but at the moment he hasn't, so we'll just have to, play along, as they say. Next line, he stood up and gave a shout of nervous laughter to which their cries echoed dismay. He stood up. Stephen Dallas stood up and gave a shout of nervous laughter. Stephen Dallas is laughing, to which their cries echoed dismay. Next line, a stick struck the door and a voice in the corridor called. Next line, hockey. Now just visualize, put your mind, still in this classroom, and a stick struck the door. Just imagine a hockey stick hitting the door, and a voice in the corridor called hockey. So someone is saying it's time for hockey. Next line. They broke asunder, sidling out of their benches, leaping them. Quickly they were gone, and from the lumber room came the rattle of sticks and clamour of their boots and tongues. Now just imagine they broke asunder, all these kids just scattering all over the place. They broke asunder, sidling over their benches, sliding out their benches, leaping the benches. Quickly they were gone. They were all gone. And from the lumber room came the rattle of sticks. So they're going to like a lumber room, like another room. Came the rattle of sticks, the hockey sticks, and clamour of their boots and tongues. That's just fabulous writing from Joyce. I mean the picture he's painting there is just unbelievable, Next line. A sergeant who alone had lingered came forward slowly, showing an open copybook. His tangled hair and scraggy neck gave witness of unreadiness, and through his misty glasses weak eyes looked up, pleading. On his cheek, dull and bloodless, a soft stain of ink lay, date-shaped, recent and damp as a snail's bed. So I'll read that again. Sergeant who alone, sergeant is this the name of a pupil. A sergeant who alone had lingered. This is a boy that had remained behind. Sergeant who alone had lingered came forward slowly to Stephen Dallas, showing an open copybook. Great imagery from Joyce again. His tangled hair, his hair is tangled. His tangled hair and scraggy neck gave witness of unreadiness, and through his misty glasses, he wears glasses, weak eyes looked up. You can just imagine this. You can visualize the student very, very clearly with Joyce's, words there. And through his misty glasses, weak eyes looked up, pleading. On his cheek, dull and bloodless, pure white, probably, Now, this is very important here to just think about this line. On his cheek, dull and bloodless, a soft stain of ink lay, date-shaped, recent and damp as a snail's bed. Now, that that's that's just a line and a half. And I have to read that again. On his cheek, dull and bloodless, a soft stain of ink lay, date-shaped, recent and damp as a snail's bed. That's just brilliant writing. And I'm going to explain why it is, I mean, just reading that writing is brilliant writing. But when I explain this more clearly, it really becomes just fabulous writing. Now visualize this by, on his cheek, dull and bloodless, a soft stain of ink. A soft stain of ink from, I think at that time they didn't have like pens like they have now. I think it was ink and inkwells where they dip the pen into an inkwell and, they write with it. So a soft stain of ink. So the little stain of ink across his cheek. On his cheek, dull and blood, a soft stain of ink. So he probably moved his finger across his cheek and it left a soft stain of ink. Lay date-shaped. Now what does Joyce mean by date-shaped? Now if you just think about it, date-shaped, there's a stain of blue ink right across his cheek. Now if he pulled his two fingers down on that stain of ink, it would be date-shaped. It would look like a date. Imagine a streak going across and you put your two fingers, you pull them down over it. That's what Joyce means by date-shaped. A soft stain of ink laid date-shaped. It's like a date. Like your date 16th or the 5th. It's the two lines with the two fingers. Recent and damp as a snail's bed. Just like a snail's bed. Fantastic writing. Next line, you see, this is why you can't rush reading Joyce or reading Ulysses, because you'd miss the meaning of that word date-shaped. What does Joyce mean by date-shaped? That's what Joyce means by date-shaped. You'd miss that completely, and therefore you'd miss out on that brilliant imagery. Next line, he held out his copybook. The student sergeant held out his copybook. The word sums was written on the headline. The word sums was written on the headline. Beneath were sloping figures, and at the foot a crooked signature with blind loops and a blot. Cyril Sargent, his name and seal. I have to read that again. So he held out his copybook. The word sums. In Ireland here we say sums. It's mathematics basically. Sums. Sometimes they say sums. It's mathematics. The word sums was written at the headline up on the top of the page. Beneath were sloping figures. Now beneath, just imagine this page. Beneath what are sloping figures? Sloping figures are the 5, 6, 7, 8. This is what he means by beneath were sloping figures. All these figures. Beneath were sloping figures, and at the foot of the page, a crooked signature. Now remember Joyce before in the previous 20 pages, he used the crooked crack. So now he used it here again, a crooked signature. A signature is like crooked, and a crooked signature with blind loops. What does he mean by blind loops? Just imagine, anybody's signature, even your own signature, and you do a couple of loops at the end with blind loops. But when Joyce says with blind loops, that means it's like, just imagine two loops, two like kind of circles, two loops with blind loops. There's no dot in the middle, there's no I in the middle. That's what it means with blind loops. It's two round loops with no I in the middle, with blind loops. That's what I mean by blind loops. And a blot. Blot would be the full stop. Blotted with like a blotting paper, which in them times they use like blotting paper, which is like a paper. If you wrote from an inkwell, it would be wet. So you'd use you'd put a kind of sheet of blotting paper down to soak up some of the ink, and then it would dry quicker. That's what is meant there. Cyril Sargent, his name and seal, basically signature. Next line, Mr. Deasy told me to write them all out Sorry. Mr. Deasy told me to write them out all again, he said. This is the boy speaking to Stephen Dallas. And show them to you, sir. Next line. Stephen touched the edges of the book. Futility. Stephen touched the edge of the book. Futility. He's saying useless. Next line. Do you understand how to do them now? He asked. Stephen Dallas asking the young boy, do you understand how to do them now? He asked. Numbers 11 to 15, Sergeant answered. Mr. Deasy said I was to copy them off the board, sir. Off the blackboard, whatever. Numbers 11 to 15, Sergeant answered. Mr. Deasy said I was to copy them off the board, sir. Next line. Can you do them yourself? Stephen asked. Next line. No, sir. That's pretty self-explanatory. Now, the next paragraph here. The next paragraph basically here is Stephen Dallas. He's thinking. He starts thinking. He's thinking ugly and futile. Stephen Dallas here is thinking about the boy. He's saying it's ugly and futile, lean neck and tangled hair and a stain of ink, a snail's bed. Yet someone had loved him, borne him in her arms and in her heart. But for her, the race of the world would have trampled him underfoot, a squashed, boneless snail. She had loved his weak, watery blood, drained from her own. Was that then real, the only true thing in life? His mother's prostrate body, the fiery Columbanus in holy zeal bestrode. She was no more, the trembling skeleton of a twig burned in a fire, an odour of rosewood and wetted ashes. She had saved him from being trampled underfoot and had gone, scarcely having been, a poor soul gone to heaven, and on a heath beneath winking stars, a fox, red reek of rapine in his fur, with merciless bright eyes, scraped in the earth, listened, scraped up the earth, listened, scraped and scraped. So I should read that back again. Read that back in. I just have to pick up my pen here that fell on the floor. That's all. 1 second, please. Just dropped my pen. I got it again. So I want to read that back again. So this, I think, is Stephen Dallas just thinking here. He's thinking about the boy in front of him. He's ugly and futile. He's more or less saying lean neck. He's got a lean neck and he's got tangled hair and a stain of ink, across his cheek that looks like a snail's bed. And then he's thinking, yet someone had loved him. Obviously his mother, borne him in her arms. Now he's thinking about her mother. Yet someone had loved him. His mother had loved him, borne him in her arms and in her heart, and also in her heart. Probably when she was pregnant, he's kind of referring to her too. But for her, the boy's mother, the race of the world would have trampled him underfoot, because he's like a weakling kind of a kid, and that's what Stephen Dallas is thinking about. But for her, only for she had protected him. But for her, the race of the world would have trampled him underfoot, he'd be squashed like a boneless snail. She had loved his weak, watery blood, drained from her own when she was pregnant. She had loved his weak, watery blood, drained from her own. Was that then real? The only true thing in life. Referring to pregnancy there, His mother's prostrate body, the fiery Columbanus and holy zeal bestrode. His mother's prostrate by the fiery Columbanus and holy zeal bestrode. The fiery Columbanus. Let me just see that. Let me think for a second now here. Have to look up a word here. Dominate. His mother prostrate by the Columbanus. I don't know who Columbanus was. I know Columbanus is. I should know who Columbanus is, because I've heard this name in Ireland a lot before. Columbanus. His mother's body, the fiery Columbanus and holy. I think what he's using Columbanus in a figure of speech here, in a figure of way. I think Stephen Dallas is thinking about when his mother, made love to some man. His mother's prostrate body, the fiery column the man in holy zeal bestrode. That's, I think, what he's referring to here. She was no more. Now, she was no more, meaning she's probably dead. The trembling skeleton of a twig burned in a fire. The trembling skeleton of a twig burned in a fire. An odour of rosewood and wetted ashes. Now we read this phrase before, an odour of rosewood and wetted ashes, in the previous 20 pages. Now, I couldn't figure out what that was about. It's popped up here again. Now, let me read that again. His mother's prostrate body, the fire come by the holy day bestowed. His mother, some man making love to his mother. That possibly could be what that means. She was no more. Now, he could be thinking about his own mother here now, or he could be thinking about this boy's mother. I'm not really sure yet. She was no more, the trembling skeleton of a twig burned in a fire. Now, that could possibly mean the woman was cremated. I know in the Catholic religion, bodies are buried in a graveyard, but if I am not mistaken, I think in the Protestant religion, they are cremated. A lot of bodies are cremated. So this school here is a private school. If I was to hazard a guess, I would say it possibly could be mostly Protestant children in the school here. So he could be referring to the boy's mother. His mother's prostrate, the fiery. She was no more. The trembling skeleton of a twig burned in a fire could mean she was cremated. An odour of rosewood and wetted ashes, which could mean, that would kind of marry in with that. An odour of rosewood and wetted ashes after the body, after it's burned. She had saved him from being trampled underfoot. His mother, or could be referring to his own mother. She had saved him from being trampled underfoot and had gone, scarcely having been. Protected the boy, or maybe if it's his own mother, protected him. She had saved him from being trampled underfoot and had gone, scarcely having lived, basically. A poor soul gone to heaven, and on a heath beneath winking stars, and on a heath, let me look at that word heath again, and on a heath, wasteland overgrown with shrubs, and on a heath. And on a heath beneath winking stars. And on a heath beneath winking stars. And on a heath beneath winking stars. That's a great line. Winking stars. A fox. A red reek of rapine in his fur. With merciless bright eyes scraped in the earth. Listened. Scraped up the earth. Listened. Scraped and scraped. Now, this could possibly be Stephen Dallas kind of thinking about his own mother, and maybe had his own mother cremated. I know it's been referred that his mother he is a Catholic in this story, because it said that he was at Clongowns or whatever. He held the incense and so on. Would make him an ortho by a Catholic. But maybe he became a Protestant, we don't know yet. So if he's thinking about his own mother, she had saved him from being trampled underfoot and had gone, scarcely having been, a poor soul gone to heaven. And on a heath beneath winking stars. Now, he could have buried the ashes of his own mother, in the ground. And on a heath beneath winking stars, a red reek of rapine is for a fox, whereas merciful bright eyes could have went to scrape up the ashes, with merciless bright eyes scraped in the earth. Did you imagine a fox scraping in the earth, and then stopping, listening to see if anyone coming, and then scrapes up the earth? Scrapes it up, he's digging up something. Stops, he listened, is anyone coming? Scraped and scraped, then he scrapes and scrapes. I think we'll probably learn more as we read on about this, but I think he's thinking here about his own mother, and if I was to guess, I think he buried her ashes in the ground, and he could have seen a fox as he was leaving, possibly, Next line, sitting at his side, Stephen solved out the problem. Back to the boy here and the sitting at his side, Stephen solved out the problem. This thing they're doing here in the classroom. He proved by algebra that Shakespeare's ghost is Hamlet's grandfather. I think he's just thinking that line there. That's all. Yeah, they're doing mathematics. He proved by algebra that Shakespeare's ghost is. Next line, Sergeant peered askance through his slanted glasses. Hockey sticks rattled in the lumber room. The hollow knock of a ball and calls from the field. That's very, you could visualize that clearly. Sergeant peered askance through his slanted glasses. He wears glasses. Hockey sticks rattled in the lumber room. They're rattling. The other boys are rattling the hockey sticks in their room. The hollow knock of a ball and calls from the field. That's still, going on, this hockey thing. Now, next line. Across the page, the symbols moved in grave morass. In the mummery of the letters, weaving quaint caps of squares and cubes. Give hands, traverse, how to partner, so imps of fancy of the moors. Gone to from the world. Averroes and Moses. May Ammonius, dark men of mien and movement, flashing in their mocking mirrors the obscure soul of the world. A darkness shining in brightness with brightness which brightness could not comprehend. Alright, let me read that paragraph again. Across the page. Now he's looking at the page the boy is open. Across the page, the symbols moved in grave morass. They're symbols, the figures, the letters, whatever, in the mummery of their letters. Now this is great writing here from Giles. In the mummery of the letters. What does he mean by in the mummery of their letters? That's a riddle now for any listeners. Across the page, the symbols moved in grave morass in the mummery of the letters. And you can pause and think about this for a few minutes. In the mummery of their letters. But if you don't want to pause, here is what I think. Across the page, the symbols moved in grave morass. In the mummery of their letters. In the mummery. Visualize the page with lines across. All these loads of lines across the page horizontally. That's what I think he means by in the mummery of the letters. Isn't it like just visualize a mummy, with all the bandages going across. The page is like the lines. The bandages is the lines and the bandages. Across the page, the symbols moved in the mummery of the letters. In the mummery, it's like the page is like looking at a mummy with all the lines going across. That's what I think he means by there. Fantastic, right, my guys. Wearing quaint caps of squares and cubes. Wearing quaint caps. Now these are the letters he's talking about. They're wearing quaint caps of squares and cubes. There's some kind of symbols on the mathematic page. That's what that means. Squares of quaint caps. They're like caps of squares and cubes. Give hands, and it's like the letters have hands. That's what he's kind of traverse. How to partner? Will we partner? Will we have a dance? He's referring to all the letters and the things on the page. So they remind you of imps of fancy of the moors, they're little demons. You could visualize them as that. Gone, and now he's thinking here, gone to from the world, Averimus. Let me see who he was again. Averimus was an Arab philosopher in Spain. Maimonides, cannot pronounce that word. A Jewish rabbi, philosopher, and a major theologian. So Stephen else is thinking too, gone from the world. These people are dead. Averimus and Moses mean us dark men in mean and movement. Dark men in mean and movement. I don't know why he calls them dark men in mean and movement, to be honest. Flashing in their mocking mirrors the obscure mirrors the obscure soul of the world. Flashing in their mocking mirrors. Flashing in their mocking mirrors. Flashing in their mocking mirrors. That could refer to flashing in their the obscure soul of the world. People that have kind of copied them, possibly. A darkness shining in brightness. I don't know why he calls it a darkness shining in brightness, which brightness could not comprehend. Not really sure about that. It would require more study, and it would require more looking into these people here. Moses, I know a good bit about. Yes, I do read the Bible. um, Every must don't know anything about them and Maris. Now, if you study them two characters, this will become more clear. Next line. Do you understand now? Can you work the second for yourself? Now, this is Stephen Dallas talking to the boy, the sergeant boy. Do you understand it now? Do you understand it now? Can you work the second for yourself? And he answered, yes, sir. Next line. In long, shady strokes, sergeant copied the data, waiting always for a word of help. His hand moved faithfully, the unsteady symbols, a faint hue of shame, flickering behind his dull skin. Amor, mattress, subjective and objective, genitia. With her weak blood and whey sour milk she had fed him, and hid from sight of others his swaddling bands. I'm reading here, and the light is very weak, and I'm finding it hard to actually make out the words, but I'll soldier on. In long shady strokes, sergeant copied the data. He's copying. Waiting always for a word. He's waiting. You can visualize it. He's waiting for a word of encouragement. Waiting always for a word of help from the teacher. His hand moving faithfully. The unsteady symbols. The figures or whatever he's writing. A faint hue of shame. He's kind of a bashful kind of a kid, flickering beneath his dull skin. He's a weakling. He's a weak kind of a kid. Amor, mattress, subjective and objective genitalia. I'm very bad at pronouncing words. Basically, it's kind of easy enough to figure that out. With her weak blood, now he's thinking about this kid's mother. With her weak blood and whey sour milk, she had fed him. He's thinking about this kid's mother when she was pregnant with him. With her weak blood and whey sour milk, she had fed him, and hid from sight of others his swaddling bands. When he was born, he was obviously a weakling, and she was probably hiding him as a baby. That's what he's referring to there, I think. Now, like him was I, those sloping shoulders. Now, this is Stephen Dallas thinking himself. He's thinking, like him was I, those sloping shoulders. This gracelessness, my childhood, bends beside me. Now, Stephen Dallas is thinking here, this kid reminds me of myself, he's thinking. Like him was I. I was like him when I was young. I had the same sloping shoulders. I had the same gracelessness. My childhood bends beside me. He is just like me when I was a kid. Too fair for me to lay a hand there once or lightly. I'm not sure about that now. Next line. Mine is fair and his secret as our eyes. Mine is fair and his secret as our eyes. Secrets, silent, stony, sit in dark. Secrets, silent, stony, sit in the dark places of both our hearts. Secrets, weary of their tyranny. Tyrants willing to be dethroned. Like him was I, those sloping shoulders disgraceless. My childhood bends beside me. Too fair for me to lay a hand there once or lightly. Mine is fair and his secret as our eyes. I'm not sure about that. Secrets, silent, stony, sit in. Secrets, silent, stony, sit in the dark palaces of both our hearts. Secrets weary of their tyranny. Tyrants willing to be dethroned. I need to give that a lot more thought to figure out exactly what has been said there. The sum was done. The sum was done, meaning the sum. In Ireland here we say the sum it's a mathematic, thing. A sum basically is 3 plus 3 is 6. That's would be considered a sum. The sum is done. Whatever he was adding up is done. Next line. It is very simple, Stephen said as he stood up. It is very simple, Stephen said. He says to the boy, it is very simple, Stephen said as he stood up. Next line. Yes, sir. Thanks, Sergeant answered. As the kid said, yes, sir. Thanks. Thanks for your help. Next line. He dried the page with a sheet of thin blotting paper and carried his copybook from the desk. Now, this is the thin blotting paper I was talking about. Yes, he dried the page with a sheet of thin blotting paper because they wrote in them times with pen and ink, and they would dip the pen into an inkwell, which was like a liquid, and they would write with that. And when they're written, they'd use a sheet of blotting paper to dry it basically and make it dry faster. Otherwise, it would run. He dried the page with a sheet of thin blotting paper and carried his copybook back to his desk. Now, next line. You had better get your stick and go out to the other, Stephen said as he followed towards the door the boy's graceless form. So basically Stephen Dallas is saying to this young kid, you had better get your stick, your hockey stick, and go out with the others, go playing the hockey, Stephen said as he followed towards the door the boy's graceless form. So he's a weakling kind of a boy, graceless form. So the boy answered, yes, sir. In the corridor, his name was heard, called from the playfield, Sergeant. So he's heard the shout of his name out in the playfield. In the corridor, his name was heard, called from the playfield. Someone was calling the playfield, Sergeant, like, where are you? Come on out here playing. Next line, run on, Stephen said. Mr. Deasy is calling you. So that's another teacher, obviously. Run on, Stephen said. Mr. Deasy is calling you. Next line, he stood in the porch and watched the laggard hurry towards the scrappy field where sharp voices were in strife. They were sorted in teams, and Mr. Deasy came stepping over wisps of grass with gated feet. When he reached the schoolhouse, voices again contending called him. He turned his angry white moustache. So he stood in the porch. Stephen Dallas stood in the porch outside and waited and watched the laggard, that's the young boy, hurry towards the scrappy field, going out playing the hockey, where sharp voices were in strife. This is all the kids, talking back and over. They were sorted in teams, and Mr. Deasy came stepping over wisps of grass. That's great writing, over wisps of grass with gated feet. This is the teacher with the boys at the hockey match. When he reached the schoolhouse, voices again. Now, so Mr. Deasy seems to be coming towards Stephen Dallas. When he reached the schoolhouse, voices again contending called him. He turned his angry white moustache. Next line. What is it now? He cried continually without listening. So Mr. Deasy is making his way towards Stephen Dallas, and the kids are calling to him. And he turns around and he says, what is it now? What's going on with you now? He cried continually without listening. And next line. Cochrane and Halliday are on the same side, Stephen cried. Or Stephen Dallas said, Cochrane and Halliday are on the same side, Stephen said. Same side, sir, Stephen cried. So Stephen Dallas said to Mr. Dallas, Cochrane and Halliday, obviously two good players, they're on the same side. It's not fair, probably. They should be on different sides because they're two very good players. To even things up, Cochrane and Halliday are on the same side, sir, Stephen said to Mr. Deasy. Next line. Will you wait in my study for a moment, Mr. Deasy said, till I restore order here. So Mr. Deasy said, wait in my study for a moment and I sort this out, basically. Next line. As he stepped fussily back across the field, his old man's voice cried sternly, what is the matter? What is it now? Now, that's just what a person like that would say. What is the matter? What is it now? Next line. Their sharp voices cried after him on all sides. Their many forms closed round him. The garish sunshine bleaching the honey of his ill-dyed head. Right. Now you can just visualize that clearly. Their sharp voices cried about him. You can just imagine all these boys surrounding this Mr. This and giving out about this, that, and the other. Their sharp voices cried after him on all sides. Their many forms closed around him. You can just imagine them all coming around him. It's not fair, sir. So on. Should be on this team, and so on and so forth. Their many forms closed round him. The garish sunshine The garish sunshine. The garish sunshine. Just 1 second. The garish sunshine. Okay. The garish sunshine bleaching the honey. Bleaching the honey of his ill-dyed head. That's great writing. The garish sunshine bleaching the honey. So he's, yeah, the garish sunshine bleaching the honey of his ill-dyed head. Ill-dyed head. So he obviously dyes his hair, and he dyes his hair brown. Bleaching the honey. It's like brown honey. The garish sunshine bleaching the honey of his ill-dyed head. It's like brown honey. That's what's great writing from Joyce again. Next line. Stale, smoky air hung in the study with the smell of drab, abraded leather on his chairs. As on the first day he bargained with me here, as it was in the beginning is now. On the sideboard the tray of Stuart Kynes, base treasure of a bog and ever shall be, and snug in their spoon case of purple plush, faded, the 12 apostles having preached to all the Gentiles, world without end. That's fantastic writing on Joyce. It doesn't seem like much, but when I actually explain it, as clear as I can explain it, it becomes just fantastic writing. So Stephen Dallas is in this office, whatever. Stale, smoky air hung in the study. He's in the stale, smoky air. Stale, smoky air hung in the study with the smell of drab, abraded leather on his chairs. Just imagine the smell of the leather on the chairs. As on the first day he bargained with me here. As on the first, Stephen Dallas is thinking, as on the first day I came in here, this Mr. Deasy bargained with me here, probably over the fee for his teaching. As on the first day, this is the same place. As on the first day he bargained with me here. As it was, and then he's thinking, as it was in the beginning, is now, never shall be, world without end. Amen. He's just thinking that line. Now, next line. On the sideboard, the tray of Stuart Kynes. On the sideboard. So, in this office, on the sideboard, is a tray of Stuart Kynes. It's a tray of Kynes, basically. Base treasure of a bog. They were found in a bog somewhere, and never shall be. Base treasure of a bog, and never shall be. And snug in their spoon case of purple plush, faded, the 12 apostles having preached to all the Gentiles, world without end. Now, this is another example of why Ulysses cannot be rushed, because you would miss these two great lines of writing here. You just read through this and you wouldn't actually get what is being said here. Alright, so I'm going to read that again. On the sideboard, the tray of Stuart Kynes, base treasure of a bog. These Kynes were found in a bog somewhere, never shall be. He's more or less, Stephen that's more or less saying, yeah, they should have remained in the bog, whatever. And snug in their spoon case. Now they reside in a spoon case. Visualize like a spoon case, or visualize something, and in snug in their spoon case are purple plush. So now they reside in a spoon case. Visualize a case that would hold spoons, knives, and forks, like one of these things you would see, purple, and it's lined with purple. I don't know what the name of that material is. And so now these Kynes are in this like a spoon case. It was once a spoon case, but now these Kynes are in this, and it's lined with the purple kind of cloth. And the purple cloth is faded. The 12 apostles having preached to all the Gentiles. What does he mean by the 12 apostles having preached to all the Gentiles? Well, I think what he means is the 12 apostles. It's like a picture of the Last Supper. Is on this purple. How would I describe this at all? And snug in their spoon case are purple plush, faded. It's this purple thing it's faded, but it also contains like a picture of the Last Supper, and that's what Joyce is here. As snug in their spoon case are purple plush, it's faded. The 12 apostles is a picture of the Last Supper in the spoon case. having preached to all the Gentiles world without end. Amen. That's what that means. There's a picture of the 12 apostles in this purple plush. It's ingrained in the purple plush, basically. That's what that means, I think. Next line, a hasty step over the stone porch and in the corridor. So this is Mr. DC, sorry. A hasty step over the stone porch and in the corridor, blowing out his rare moustache, Mr. DC halted at the table. Yes. Next line. First, our little financial settlement, he said. This is Mr. DC talking to Stephen Dallas, or I must pay you, more or less. Next line. He brought out of his coat a pocketbook bound by a leather thong. It slapped open, and he took from it 2 notes, one of giant halves, and laid them carefully on the table. Let me read that again. So Mr. DC said, first, our little financial settlement, I must pay you for teaching here. Now he brought out of his coat a pocketbook. Now visualize him bringing out of his coat a pocketbook bound by a leather thong. Now I have to kind of explain something about Joyce. At every opportunity, Joyce, when he wrote The Dubliners and he wrote Portrait of an Artist, a Young Man, I think he was shackled. Well, he was shackled a lot. I know in The Dubliners, he was shackled a lot by censorship and certain things he couldn't say. Now, when he wrote Ulysses, he wasn't shackled by any sponsorship any censorship at all. But Joyce always likes to throw in, a lot of sexual connotations, and this, no doubt, here is. I'm not going to give the answer, but you have to think about it, really. He brought out of his coat a pocketbook bound by a leather thong. It slapped open, and he took from it. Imagine this thong. He slapped open. Joyce is kind of insinuating something here as well, For example, in the first 20 pages, actually I never mentioned this before, Buck Mulligan, if you remember the line, Buck Mulligan mounted the round gun rest. Now, there's a lot of words Joyce could have used besides mounted, but the only reason he used mounted because there's a sexual connotation to he mounted the gun rest. It's like a man making love to a woman. He mounted her. That's what sometimes they say that in Ireland. It sounds a bit crude, but they do say that. So Joyce will throw in these terms at every opportunity he gets right through Ulysses and all in his writing. And that's the reason he said it. Buck Mulligan mounted the gun rest, and now he's thrown this in here. He brought out of his coat a pocketbook bound by a leather thong. It slapped open. You see, this is not innocent. This is deliberate from Joyce. He brought out of his coat a pocket bound by a leather thong. It slapped open, and he took from it 2 coins, one of giant halves, and laid them carefully on the table. Joyce is referring to something here with a woman and so on. And as we read on to Ulysses, it'll come more clear what I'm trying to get across here. It slapped open, and he took from it 2 notes. 2 notes, one of giant half. One of the notes was giant and half, basically, and laid them carefully on the table. 2, he said, strapping and stowing his pocketbook away. Here's another. This is, strapping. He's strapping and stowing. Is 2. He said, strapping and stowing his pocketbook away. No doubt, Joyce was laughing as he was writing this. Strapping is, is if you really think about it. 2, he says, strapping and stowing. It's not innocent. Don't think for a second any of that is innocent. This is deliberate by Joyce here. It's deliberate references to kind of like a woman and so on. 2, he said, strapping and stowing his pocketbook away. Next line, and now his strong room for the gold. Stephen's embarrassed hand moved over the shells heaped in the cold stone mortar. Whelks and money, cowries and leopard shells, and this hurled as an immer's turban, and this the scallop of St. James, and old pilgrims hoard dead treasure, hollow shells. I just want to take a break for a second and come back in.